Hello and welcome to the Supervisor video demonstration of how to certify a time and effort report. Today we're going to go over a brief summary of the new updates that we've made with the second round of time and effort certification. We're going to talk about responsibilities and where you can find additional resources and who to contact if you have questions. So just a quick summary of the updates we've made based on feedback that we received for our first reporting period and reporting cycle. One of the biggest feedback items that we received was the request to change the workflow or approval order. As you know, in the initial round or reporting period that we did for April through December of 2019, the workflow started with the employee, and then it went to the employee supervisor to approve, and then it ended with the PIs reviewing the sponsored award or the grant activity and approving. So based on feedback that we received, we have changed that work order to put the PIs in the middle. So the employee will still receive it first, and then the report will go to the PIs for them to review the grant or sponsored award activity and approve, and then it will flow to the supervisors. So hopefully you guys will be pleased with the new workflow. And the thought process behind this was simply supervisors would feel more comfortable approving the overall report if once they knew PIs had already approved the portion charged to the sponsored awards and that there weren't any issues with the amounts represented there. And we absolutely wholeheartedly agreed, so we were able to get that update in for this upcoming certification cycle. Another change we made is you can now view workflow prior to approving the form. So if you want to know who's seen the form or who's going to see it after you, you can actually see that prior to approving the form. And we'll show you and demonstrate that in just a few seconds. And you can also use the View a Grant Report option to see not only forms that you've approved, but also forms that are pending your approval. And that's not just for the current reporting cycle, but also past reporting cycles. We also updated the certification language to include "to the best of my knowledge and belief." And PIs will only be able to toggle funding lines where they're listed as the PI, unless they are also listed as the supervisor. So who should expect a time and effort report? A time and effort report will automatically be generated for any employee where a portion of their salary is either directly charged to a sponsored project or used as cost share on a sponsored project. So that's still the same. And then reports will be released for certification after your college or department's business manager or administrator has released them. So business managers will still review the reports and then release them to workflow and approval. You will receive an email notification once the report has been submitted to you or is in your queue pending your approval, and it will look as follows. It will contain action required. It will list the employee's name, their primary department, the reporting period of the report, as well as the e-form number associated with that report. It'll contain a link to the actual report itself, so you can click on that link to access it, or you can log directly into HCM to approve. So two different ways to access it. I know when we went through the first round, a lot of people thought these were phishing attempts or spam emails, but these are legitimate emails, and it is completely safe to click on those links to access the reports. And one thing that we do want to point out is, certification is required to be completed within 30 days. And of course, when we say certification, that means approval from everyone for that report. So that's from the employee, the PIs, and the supervisors. So as soon as you receive these certification emails, please make sure you're taking action, that you're logging in, that you're clicking the links and taking the time to review the reports so that we can get these approved and fully executed within that 30-day time frame. So once you receive that email notification, You can either click on the link within the email to access it, or you can log directly into PeopleSoft using the link below. And then once you log into HCM, you'll navigate to My Workplace. You'll select that grant time and effort tile, and then click on Certify Grant Report. So now we're going to demonstrate how to do that. So again, once you log into HCM, the first thing it automatically defaults to Employee Self-Service. So you'll click that drop-down menu and go to My Workplace. Select the Grant Time and Effort tile. And then you should have two options over here on the left-hand side. You can view a grant report. And again, as we mentioned before, you can now view old reports, new reports, reports that you've already approved, or reports that are currently in your queue to be approved using this option. But to actually certify a report, you're going to have to click on Certify a Grant Report. So click on Certify, make sure it's green, and then these search options come up. You can enter in the form ID number if you know it. It'll be in that email. You can search by an employee name. I always recommend just doing a wide open search. That way you see everything that's in your queue, because you might have a multitude of employees pending, not just the one. If there's only one report in your queue, that report will automatically open when you hit search. So let's see what happens. I'm guessing it's going to automatically open. And as you can see, it did. And our employee is Harry Potter. And he is from the Office of Economic Engagement. And this report is for January through June of 2020. And as we can see, he was cost shared to these 3 projects. And then the rest of his non-sponsored activity was to these e-funds. And then our acknowledgement, as we mentioned before, is to the best of my knowledge and belief. I certify that I have firsthand knowledge of the employee and that the payroll percentages reasonably reflect their effort and are consistent with the work performed during the reporting period. So based on the review and my knowledge of Harry Potter, is this reasonable? Am I aware that he, spent time on these various activities? While I may not know the specifics necessarily of this information, I do know that the PIs have already approved and concurred with that information. So between my knowledge of the employee in conjunction with the PI's approval, does all of this feel reasonable? And again, if you ever want to know, well, who's already seen this, who's already approved it, you can click the View Approval Routing, and you can see that the employees already concurred, and you can see that the PIs of all these projects have also approved, and that now it's pending with me as the supervisor. Now, if I have specific questions or I need additional details in order to make my evaluation, you can always click here to find out, hey, what months, what pay periods was this for, to find out that information. Because maybe by clicking down here, maybe for March, he should have been charged elsewhere. Maybe I'm aware as a supervisor, maybe I'm aware that he worked, with this other department for the whole month of March, and so he shouldn't have been charged to my E account. And so if that was the case, then I would uncertify that line and recycle the form with a comment. Please update payroll for whatever period and charge it to here so that you can make those corrections. And so on and so forth. But for the sake of this demonstration, we're going to concur that this looks reasonable with how Harry Potter spent his time. To the best of my knowledge and belief, it appears reasonable. And I do have knowledge of this employee. I'm going to select yes, and then I'm going to approve the report. And now you can see you have successfully approved the e-form. And you'll notice as supervisor, I had access to all the lines on that report to make adjustments. And if you open this up, you can see that now my acknowledgement has been logged, as well as basically my electronic approval. And if you view approval route, you can see now is logged as approved. And so at this point, the report is considered complete and fully executed. So next steps, once you complete your certification, the report, like we mentioned, will be complete and fully executed. And if a correction is requested at any step by you, for example, the form will then be recycled and it automatically routes back to the business manager so that they can make those adjustments. And then the business manager at that point will resubmit it for recertification. So it'll go back to the employee, to the PIs, and then back to you as a supervisor to approve. One thing that we do want to highlight is that if the employee and the PI are the same person, that the approval at the PI step will be automatic. Faculty members obviously will receive a time and effort report, and they will most frequently work on their own projects. So they'll be listed as the PI on their own projects. They're not going to have to log in multiple times to approve that report. Their certification at the employee level will be automatic at the PI step. So supervisor responsibilities, just make sure that you ensure the salary charged to university accounts, the non-grant amount and percentage seems reasonable. For example, is there enough non-grant time available to cover, teaching and or administrative duties? And then to the best of your ability, review the salary charged to the sponsored accounts and make sure that that seems like a reasonable representation of how they spent their time. Because your certification is verification that you have firsthand knowledge of, what that employee is doing. While you might not know the ins and outs of every single thing of, how exactly what they were doing in the lab, maybe not, but you should at least have an awareness that they are working, in a lab. And again, if you have questions or concerns, coordinate with your business manager as necessary. So where can you find resources? The Office of the Controller is a great website and a great resource. I would recommend going out to the Grants and Funds Management website and looking under webinars and training. We have specific information regarding uniform guidance and effort reporting, as well as, information on how to look at HCM payroll distribution itself if you ever wanted to look at it in greater detail. And again, if you have questions, always reach out to your business manager. And with that, please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.